Welcome to Hardwood Handicappers with Zach Cohen, right here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
This is Zachary Cohen, VSiN.com senior editor with another episode of Hardwood Handicappers. Today is Tuesday, February 10th. We are recording this at 11 a.m. Eastern, a little bit later than usual, but we have 4 games for this evening, and while that might not seem all that exciting, I do have picks for all of them. So I do have something on every single game, whether that's a prop or a parlay or, something. I'd give you a little bit of something for all of these games tonight. And honestly, while there aren't a lot of games, they are awesome games. So let's start with the Pacers at the Knicks. This is a game where the Knicks are 12.5-point favorites. The total is 224.5. And I actually have a player prop in this game that I don't normally play, so I'm not putting as much on it as usual, but I'm going Jalen Brunson over 8.5 first quarter points at minus 105. So playing this to win a half a unit instead of 1 unit. I don't normally dabble in just quarter player props, but it felt like a really good way to attack this game because I do think Brunson's going to have a really strong performance against this Pacers defense. And the problem with going with his overs on his player props is this, spread is 12.5. The Knicks are playing great. I would not be surprised if this ends up being a blowout in favor of New York, where we don't see a lot of Brunson in the fourth quarter. So I think that playing him to, have an impact early on is a good way to do it. And over 8.5 is something that he's been hitting regularly throughout the course of this season. I mean, he's averaging 9.8 points per game in the first quarter this season. Generally plays like the full first quarter for New York. He's averaging 11.7 minutes per game in first quarters this season. And he had 10 points against this Pacers team in the first quarter back on December 18th in his only other meeting with the Pacers. And this is a Pacers team, like I said, really strong matchup for Brunson because they are 28th in the league defending pick and roll ball handlers. Brunson scores a big bulk of his points as a pick and roll ball handler, 8.5 points per game on the year against, in pick and roll situations. Also, Indiana just 28th in the league defending inside 10 feet, where Brunson has one of the best floater packages in the entire league, scores 36% of his points, in the paint and at the rim. And just overall, this Indiana team also puts opponents on the free throw line a ton. And Brunson's a guy that scores 4.9 points per game, so makes 4.9 free throws per game, and he just gets himself to the free throw line a lot. I know a lot of people call him a foul baiter, like to compare him to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander a little bit, but not quite that bad, but still somebody that gets to the free throw line a ton. And just overall, I really like him to just kind of cook in this matchup, and I do think he's going to do it early. So I think this is a game where we're going to see Brunson show up. I could see him having 10 to 12 points in the first quarter easily. So wanted to put a little something on this, but I didn't want to go too crazy because, again, it's really not my wheelhouse. But the handicap is there. I think it's going to be one that ends up being very close if it doesn't hit. So Brunson over 8.5 first quarter points. Game number 2 that I want to talk about, it's the Clippers at the Rockets at 8 p.m. Eastern, and I'm pairing this one with the Spurs and the Lakers at 10:30 p.m. Eastern, because I'm playing a parlay in this game. I mean, it's a light slate, like I said. There isn't a lot, and there are a lot of big favorites on this card. So what I'm doing with these 2 games is I'm taking the Rockets to beat the Clippers and the Spurs to beat the Lakers. That parlay is minus 132 at prominent shops. You'll be able to find either that or something very close to it. And I would have played this up to minus 150. So if you can't find the minus 132 and you can only find like a minus 140, would still strongly suggest playing it. I have this to win 1.5 units because it is a high confidence play for me. But let's start with the Clippers at the Rockets, because that is the first game of the 2. Like I said, 8 p.m. Eastern tip. This is a game where the Rockets have a big rest advantage. The Clippers didn't play last night, but the Rockets haven't played in 2 nights. And this LA team is still waiting for Darius Garland to come back from the toe injury that had him out for Cleveland. One of the reasons that the Cavaliers made that Harden for Garland swap was just the availability of Harden versus the availability of Garland. Garland really is never on the floor when you need him. So it's going to be a challenge for Los Angeles to get him healthy, but it won't be tonight. So tonight there's going to be a lot on Kawhi Leonard. Generally, that's not a big problem. I mean, he had 41 points last game, led them to a win over Minnesota. He's playing the best basketball of his Clippers career, in my opinion, just been carrying this team to, a playoff spot, or at least a play-in spot. And the way that he's playing offensively has just been remarkable. I mean, the three-point shooting's there. The, mid-range game is there. He's attacking well. He looks healthy. Just, really, really playing some fantastic basketball. But the problem here is he does not have a lot of help And this Rockets team has a lot of bodies that they could throw it in, whether that's Amen Thompson, Tari Eason, Kevin Durant, Jabari Smith, Dorian Finney-Smith off the bench. Like, these are guys with length, with size that could really bother him. And if Kawhi is kind of doubled and uncomfortable, who is going to help him? I don't really see that consistent number two on this roster right now. And another thing that you've taken away with the deadline is that Ivica Zubac, now on the Indiana Pacers, is gone. So you're playing a Rockets team that does not have Steven Adams. This Houston team can no longer kind of rebound the way that they want to, but Los Angeles really can't take advantage of that because there's no Zubats on this roster. So between Lopez and Niederhauser, I think that the center position isn't that bad for LA, but it's not good enough to take advantage of no Adams for Houston. So I really just think that this Rockets team has advantages all throughout the lineup. I can actually see this being a really big Şengün game, just because I don't think that there's anybody on the Clippers that really has the quickness to kind of cover him and his, like, remarkable footwork. So I do think this is a game Houston wins. And I'll throw on the fact that Houston is 27-7 straight up under Ime Udoka when playing as home favorites of 6.5 to 12 points. And Los Angeles under Ty Lue, just 13-29 straight up as road underdogs of 6.5 to 12. So same situation. One team has been really good. One team's been really bad. Not crazy to be bad as like a road underdog or really good as a big home favorite. That's just the way that things are in the NBA. But that is the situation we have here. And I do think the Rockets will take advantage of it. Like I said, especially with the rest advantage. And the reason I'm pairing it up with the Spurs is it's another rest advantage. It's San Antonio coming off of 2 full days of rest. Los Angeles playing their third game in 4 nights and the second leg of a back-to-back. They lost to OKC last night. And the injury report is clean for the Spurs, a little bit cloudy for the Lakers. I mean, Luka suffered a hamstring strain back on January 17th. He did not play last night, and it does sound like his return is coming very soon. But I wouldn't be surprised if they do hold him out until after the All-Star break just to play it safe and know that they're going to have him healthy for, the final stretch of the season. But even if he is out there, I really don't see any reason San Antonio won't win this game outright. I mean, you look at the season-long numbers, and the Spurs have just been a way better team on both ends of the floor. I mean, offensively, they have a slight edge over the Lakers when you look at adjusted offensive rating. Spurs 7th in the league, Lakers 8th. Spurs 116.8, Lakers 116.5. That's not the biggest difference in the world, but San Antonio has been a better offensive team since the start of the season, where they've just gotten guys a little bit more comfortable in the rotation. But the big difference between these two is the defense, where the Spurs are 4th in the league in adjusted defensive rating, 111.8, and the Lakers are 22nd with 116.6. I just feel like this Los Angeles team wants to beat you in shootouts, and it's going to be really difficult for them to do that against this team because the Spurs can score with the Lakers, but they can also get stops. And I don't know that the Lakers can get stops. That's why I think we've seen this turn into a bit of a lopsided head-to-head with San Antonio winning by 13 and 16 in the last 2 meetings between the teams. So I feel really good about both the Rockets and the Spurs winning tonight. It's, a pro-Texas, anti-LA parlay for this evening, but I really do think we'll get the job done. Then the last game that I have a play for before I talk about some of the big news that we saw yesterday and how that affects the futures market. It's in the Mavericks and Suns game, 9 p.m. Eastern tip. And the play that I'm going to here is Mark Williams over 12.5 points at plus 105 for the Suns. Williams was not happy with his lack of fourth quarter minutes 2 games ago against the Warriors, where, Phoenix ended up blowing a big lead, did not look good in that fourth quarter. And then the next game out, we saw Jordan Ott kind of respond by giving, Williams 31 minutes against Philly. Another game that the Suns lost, but I do just kind of think that they're going to play Williams closer to 30 minutes than 20 minutes in this game, especially with the advantage that, the Suns are going to have on the inside against this Mavericks team. I mean, Dallas was a team that heading into the year we thought was going to be absolutely massive and tough to score on inside because it was going to be, Derek Lively, Anthony Davis, Daniel Gafford. Now it's down to just Gafford. I mean, Lively's out for the year with the foot injury. AD was traded to Washington. If he was healthy, he was not healthy before that, but he was not there. He's not there now. But this is just a team that's become a lot weaker inside, and they are 27th in the NBA now defending at the rim and 26th defending inside 10 feet. Williams scores 95% of his points inside 10 feet. And I will say that I think that his, offensive rebounding could be a huge factor in this game because Dallas is a bottom 10 team in the league when it comes to defending putbacks, which really just means that they're one of the worst, defensive rebounding teams in the NBA. Williams has been one of the best offensive rebounders in the league this year. So I do think he's going to have a pretty big game offensively. And the fact that this is plus money odds, that's just, a little added bonus. If you're looking to sharpen your edge this NBA season, VSiN Pro is where to start. Get advanced analytics, player prop projections, and expert insights used by serious bettors every day. Try it out for only $9.99 for your first month and see what smart bettors are using to beat the books. Head to vsin.com/subscribe and check out all of our subscription options. Like I said before, we did all of our picks for those 4 games. 3 of them, 3 that I feel good about, but obviously one was much bigger in the parlay, and then I do have the smaller play on Brunson, but I do have a little bit to talk about from news yesterday, which I know we've been doing a little bit of less of lately, but with the deadline and with all this stuff coming after it, it does seem like there's a lot that can kind of impact the futures market. And I think the biggest news that came down yesterday was that Jayson Tatum's return appears to be on the horizon. I know there's been a lot of talk about whether or not this would happen, but I always thought that he was going to be back. It just sounds like he was making such good progress in his recovery. And there was the fact that he got right into the surgery room right after the injury, which they said was going to kind of lower his timeline and make things a lot easier on him. Well, he has been, appointed to the G League team, getting ready to start practicing with that group. He's already playing 5-on-5 with coaches. And the last time the Celtics put a player that had surgery on this G League stint, it was Kristaps Porzingis, and he returned 8 days later. That was not as serious of an injury. That was a torn muscle, but not, a torn Achilles. But I do just kind of feel like it seems like Tatum's coming back soon. And I thought at the deadline that acquiring Vucevic did say that they believed that Tatum will be back. Obviously, there is the thought that they were playing well enough without Tatum that either way they should have addressed the center position to give that team a fighting chance. But I don't think you invest anything in the current roster without knowing that you're getting Tatum back. And I don't expect Tatum to look like Jayson Tatum right away. I'm not, that type of person. I don't believe we're going to see 30 plus minutes from him playing like an all NBA player. But I do think that he's going to be a good bench player at the very least. If they bring him off the bench and he just kind of takes over some of the minutes that have gone to Baylor Shireman and Jordan Walsh, this team definitely becomes better, even if he's 75% of what he once was, because there's so much riding on Jalen Brown right now that he could just use a little bit of help on the wing. And Tatum's going to provide that, even if he's a little bit more of a standstill shooter, not driving as much, even if he's not as good defensively as he was before the injury. There's just so much he can do to help this current roster that I understand why we've seen the Celtics move up the odds board so much. And there is a plus 400 on them right now. So if you kind of believe that Tatum is the missing piece for this Celtics team in the Eastern Conference, you can take them at plus 400 to win the East. That's at BetMGM. I just saw that as of recording, so might change by the time you listen to this. I doubt it will, but this is a team that all of a sudden does have a really good shot in the Eastern Conference. I mean, they've looked like an Eastern Conference contender throughout the course of the season without Tatum. Getting him back would definitely only add to this roster. I'm not worried at all about him taking away from kind of the chemistry, the strong play. I think he's going to help them. I think he's going to help them a lot. So that return seems to be nearing. I don't know how soon it will be. I don't want to say it's going to be 8 days like Porzingis, but I do think we're going to see him in March. That's kind of always been where I've been at with this. I know that a lot of people thought February, but I think that that's why we saw that kind of mixed messaging a few weeks ago where Tatum said, I don't know if I want to come back. I don't want to mess with the chemistry these guys have. Brown's been doing such a good job as the number one and all that. But I think that that was just kind of to lower the expectations for him coming back sooner rather than later. I think sometime in March, even if it's late March, we'll see Tatum. Other things we saw last night that I do think will impact the futures market quite a bit. There was a brawl in the Hornets-Pistons game that was absolutely insane, and it resulted in Moussa Diabate, Miles Bridges, Jalen Duren, and Isaiah Stewart being kicked out of the game. And I'm now anticipating some heavy suspensions for these guys because there were punches thrown. And, Bridges is a player that's been suspended for off the court issues in the past. Stewart has been suspended for on court issues, fights on the court. So he is a repeat offender. I just think there's a really good chance that we're going to see a lot of missed games from some of these players, but especially potentially Bridges and Stewart. And then even 5 games for a player like Diabate might not seem like much, but this is a Charlotte team that is fighting for a play-in spot. Definitely looked like it had a chance of making the actual top 6 with just continuing to play the way they've been playing over the next couple of weeks. But if they are missing, 2 starters over the next 2-3 weeks, that's not going to make things any easier as they try to fight for seeding. So I'll be keeping a close eye on these announcements for suspensions because I do think that there's a chance Charlotte's hurt in the short term and long term. And then Detroit, there's a chance that they're hurt in the short term. I mean, if Duren and Stewart are suspended, those are the two bigs on this team. Like, that's the starting center and the backup center. Like, it's just going to be very difficult for them to win with that lack of size. So however long that these suspensions are, just keep an eye on it. Like, that's what I'm saying. I do think that there's a chance that both of these teams are a little disappointing while these players are out. And I'd be really shocked if there's not a suspension and not some potentially serious ones for some of the players. It was not a good look for the NBA last night, not a good look for these players. Very intense brawl, not just some minor scuffle, which we saw in another game, but this was something else. This was like a real fight that was scary for the players involved and for the fans in the first row. I mean, the fight kind of spilled into the crowd, so could have gotten a malice with the Palace too with the Pistons there, but luckily did not get that bad. But definitely keep an eye on that. That's not something to ignore over the next couple of weeks. But the last thing I want to talk about is the Cavaliers go into Denver and beat the Nuggets, now moving to 2-0 with James Harden in the lineup. 124.9 offensive rating for Cleveland through 2 games, which isn't, a big sample size or anything, but it's good. It's a really good number. That would be the best number in the NBA over the course of the entire season. And I have loved what I have seen from Cleveland overall, because I just think that we're seeing some big shot making from James Harden, a player that a lot of people question, his ability to perform in big moments. We've already seen him now kind of steal 2 games for them with some big threes, one against Sacramento. That's not a big win, whatever, it is what it is. But the other against Denver, in Denver, that's a big win. And it was, Harden that came up big at the end. Then Mitchell went to the free throw line at the end and won them the game. I just think that we're seeing a really strong backcourt. I've said this since the deal. This might be the best backcourt in the entire NBA. And I love this trade for Cleveland. I said that at the time. Like, I know that they gave up a lot in terms of potential for the future. If Garland ends up getting healthy, you're talking about a guy that's 10 years younger than Harden. But right now, you're trying to win if you're Cleveland. You're trying to keep Donovan Mitchell happy. And James Harden gives you a better chance than Darius Garland at the moment. And once Evan Mobley comes back, I think this team is going to start flying. So I've already taken this team at plus 600 before the Harden deal, and having no clue that that was coming. I didn't think that there was anything this big coming down the pipeline for Cleveland, but I did think that they would turn their season around because there was just a lot of talent. And I freaking love Jalen Tyson. Like, if you've been listening to this podcast, you know that. So when they sent DeAndre Hunter out and kind of committed to Tyson as their long-term starting 3, I absolutely love that because he is a baller that gets the job done on both ends of the floor. And I just really love the makeup of this team now. So when you have Mitchell, Harden, Tyson, Mobley, and Allen out there, that's going to be potentially the best starting 5 in basketball. And it's just going to be a matter of this team kind of putting to bed some demons from the past of not being able to get the job done in the postseason. But man, I really don't see any reason why they can't do it. Given how weak the Eastern Conference is, I think Cleveland is the team to beat. I know I said earlier in the year that it was New York. I just think that what we've seen from Cleveland so far and what the roster just looks like, I'm really excited about the Cavaliers' chances. I really think they're going to end up representing the East in the NBA Finals if they can stay healthy. So that is my takeaway from last night in what was probably the biggest performance of the night. The Cleveland game against Denver was maybe the game of the night. And like I said, just going on the road and winning that game, that says something about the Cavaliers, even with so many players out from both teams with injuries. Before we recap the best bets for tonight, attention to any listeners who are new to VSiN. Signing up for our free daily newsletter is a great way to catch up. Delivered straight to your inbox every morning, VSiN's newsletter offers picks, data, and strategies for the day's betting menu. Sign up for free now at vsin.com/newsletter and start receiving your free newsletter tomorrow morning. That's vsin.com/newsletter. Stay ahead of the game and bet smarter with VSiN. All right, well, let's recap the Tuesday night best bets. We had a winning night last night. Hopefully you guys jumped over and headed over to vsin.com, like I said, before the tip-off of that 76ers Blazers game, because I did end up adding a play on the Blazers, which was actually the opposite way that I was talking about that game yesterday. But once we saw Embiid was out and Avdija was in, that was a clear buy for me on Portland. So it ended up being a situation where I went from thinking I was going to back the Sixers to having no choice but to back in the Blazers, and ended up winning on that. But it was a positive night even without that play, but it ended up being a really good night with the Blazers play. But for tonight, Jalen Brunson over 8.5 first quarter points at -105 to win 0.5 units versus the Pacers. I have a parlay of Rockets money line versus Clippers and Spurs money line versus Lakers at -132 to win 1.5 units. Then I have Mark Williams over 12.5 points at +105 against the Mavericks. So 4 games tonight. I have a little bit of action in all 4. But those 3 plays for me, and the one big, high confidence one being that parlay, really hoping we see that one get home. I really have a good feeling about it. I think it's a really good spot for both of the teams we're backing. So at the very least, it should be in play. I would be surprised if either of the teams don't have a really good chance. But yeah, hopefully we end up cashing these 3 plays tonight, and join me for the Wednesday edition of Hardwood Handicappers. And we got the All-Star break coming up, but we are not going to stop pumping out content. So throughout that break, even though there won't be games every single night, we will have you covered with some big picture stuff, some futures, all of that. So just make sure you keep tuning in to Hardwood Handicappers, and we'll see you on Wednesday.